Who said you could sit?
Sorry, folks. Just the clueless and embarrassing son's wife here.
While she kicked my leg out from under me and I fell, Carol behaved warmly to the relatives around us. People sitting close by offered their hands to help, but Carol stopped them. I bit down hard, clutching my severely aching left leg. Though the swelling had gone down somewhat, it was where I had broken it a month ago. Carol strutted around, making it clear to all the relatives that she could treat me, her son's wife, like a servant. However, at that moment, someone appeared, and Carol's tyranny began to crumble. I'm Melissa. This year, at 24, living as a dual-income couple with my husband. We met at a party for singles organized by a friend. Back then, I was so reserved that not just marriage, but even dating someone seemed out of reach. Moreover, I'd always been focused on my studies with few friends. A few concerned friends, worried I'd end up forever single and friendless, forcibly dragged me to the event. I had no intention of finding a spouse, but there I met Brian, 2 years my senior, also there by coincidence. He was a senior of the friend who had invited me, and like me, he had been dragged to the party by friends. My friend said,
"If you don't find anyone else interesting, you should talk to this guy."
So, I did as told. And it turned out Brian had been given the same advice about me. Eventually, despite the party's intention for singles to meet, following my friend's guidance led me to date Brian. According to my friend, Brian and I seemed to have a similar vibe, and indeed, that turned out to be true. We might not have been perfectly in sync, but I often knew what Brian was thinking or about to say, and vice versa. Our relationship was like that of friends, relaxed, and we naturally progressed to marriage. Up to this point, everything was smooth, and I was surprised that someone as socially awkward as me could get married. But then, hell began. Brian's family home was far enough to require a plane from my hometown, and with the marriage, I moved into my in-laws' house. Living with in-laws might evoke images of subtle harassment. In my case, since Brian was somewhat absent-minded, I had imagined his parents to be similarly easygoing. But the moment I stepped onto the in-laws' property, "Are you Melissa? What's with that messy hair?" Before I could say anything, an elderly woman said that, leaving me stunned. I realized she was Brian's mother, Carol, because when she smiled, her eyes looked just like Brian's. "Nice to meet you. I hope you'll like this." Trying to hide my unease, I handed over the gift box from inside the paper bag. Carol didn't even attempt to reach for it, saying, "I'm busy, so get ready and come to the kitchen immediately. You can unpack your things later," before disappearing into the back room. In her place, Paul, my FIL, who had been silently standing until then, took the gift box. However, without making eye contact with me, he muttered something under his breath and walked away in a different direction from Carol. Meanwhile, Brian entered the house ahead without offering any explanation or apology to me. I felt a sense of discomfort at the glimpse of this family's power dynamics, but had no time to dwell on it. As Carol had instructed, I entrusted my luggage to Brian and headed straight to the kitchen. Noticing my footsteps, Carol turned around and glared at me. "Do you not tie your hair back when cooking at your home? Is there a tradition of serving your husband food with your hair in it?" It seemed that her earlier comment about my hair being messy was deliberately referring to my naturally curly hair. Not expecting to be thrust into the kitchen upon arrival, and my half-up hairstyle apparently did not sit well with Carol. "I'm sorry. I'll go get a hair tie," I said, attempting to leave the kitchen. "Don't drop even a single hair of yours, you country bumpkin. And if you're going to tie it, this will hold it together the best," she said, handing me a bunch of rubber bands. I was somewhat prepared for her harassment, but I didn't expect such direct malice. Carol was an elusive person. One might guess she harassed me because her precious son was taken away, but Carol seemed not to fit that narrative. She was harsh not only towards me but also towards Brian and Paul. Especially towards Brian.
"You're so feeble, that's why you end up with such a worthless wife."
Or,
"I told you not to turn out like your dad, but here you are, just as gloomy."
among other things, she says quite terrible things. Both Brian and Paul remained silent, never retorting. I convinced myself that Carol must suffer from a condition where she can't live without spewing venom, and somehow, I managed to endure it. However, there were times when Carol was in a particularly bad mood, and only my meal would not be served. Both Brian and Paul witnessed this but pretended not to see. Brian, trying to appease Carol, would even join in on her sarcastic comments and insults towards me. Lacking the courage to stand up to his mother as an adult, he would claim,
"Everything Mom says is right,"
blaming me, which was both sad and disappointing. As for Paul, he acted as if he was practically non-existent, quietly leaving the room whenever Carol started nagging me relentlessly. As for her son Brian, let alone Paul, the reason he can't say anything to Carol is clear from her insults.
"You should be grateful I married you. You have no right to talk back to me. Everything you are is thanks to my father. If you have any complaints, try saying something back. You'll surely be cursed by Dad then."
It doesn't seem like Paul is actually afraid of being cursed, but it appears he feels indebted for having been married off. Having seen Paul in a weaker position to Carol since he was young, Brian must have naturally understood that their mother was the strongest member of the family. Like Paul, they watch Carol's mood and either stay silent or agree with whatever she says. Already feeling anxious about my life at the in-laws' house, it was almost expected when an incident occurred. Since the day we started living together, I had been made to accompany Carol on grocery and household item shopping trips, which had become a weekly routine for us. One day, accustomed to being loaded with bags, we went to Carol's favorite supermarket as usual. It was the weekend, and the elevator we normally used was too crowded for immediate use. Impatient as ever, Carol quickly became irritated at the absence of an elevator on the ground floor, declaring,
"Forget it. It's a waste of time waiting around here. We'll use the stairs."
It was surprising to hear this from Carol, who would have me fetch even a TV remote. Fearing harassment, I silently complied. As I followed Carol up the stairs without looking back, I instinctively reached out towards her when I realized,
"Ah!"
Carol had stepped on the hem of her dress, nearly tripping. I instinctively reached out and supported her back as she started to fall backwards. That was fine, but in doing so, I neglected my own footing and ended up tumbling down myself.
"Hey! What are you doing?"
Carol scolded before showing concern, and I was in too much pain at the moment to respond. I had only fallen a few steps, but it seemed I had twisted my ankle badly. Noticing my ankle swelling rapidly, Carol clicked her tongue.
"How clumsy! You can't carry anything properly with that foot. It's useless staying together, so just wait in the car."
It was harsh to hear, especially since I had been injured while saving Carol. But saying so would only invite worse comments, so I quietly returned to the car and decided to rest a bit with the seat reclined. The next day, after household chores had settled down around noon, I went to the hospital. I had thought it was just a sprain, but it turned out there was a crack in the bone, and I ended up with crutches. I texted Carol to inform her, mentioning I'd be late because I was picking up some medication. The lack of response was typical, making it clear Carol didn't care at all. Returning home with the unfamiliar crutches, Carol immediately said,
"Change the light bulb in the shower room. Use the ladder from the garden since the ceiling is high. And make sure to clean the floor well afterward."
Her usual attitude filled me with disgust. It's not like I was asking for her to worry about me. But there was no urgent need to use the shower room right then, and changing the light bulb could wait for Brian or Paul to return from work. To think of putting someone who can't use one leg on a ladder over a slippery floor just shows how deplorable Carol's character is. Of course, when Paul and Brian came home, there were no words of concern for me, and Carol only scolded me as I struggled with housework, limping around. The harassment worsened from that point, not physical abuse, but constant exposure to vile words and stress. About a month into this life, as my swelling had finally gone down and I was weeding the garden while protecting my foot, Carol approached me. "Next week, there's a family dinner. Given your usual attire, I assume you don't have anything formal, right? I'll lend you one of my dresses, so at least try to tidy up and fix that messy hair of yours for the day." Having been made to quit my job after marriage and left without any money of my own, Carol continued to mock even my hair texture. Forced to always keep my hair tightly tied, I felt like I was aging prematurely. Brian had mentioned that these family dinners, held every 3 months or so, were attended by people of high social status. They were all elites, either highly educated and employed at major corporations or entrepreneurs with over 500 employees. At the dinner, it was apparent from the parking lot scene that these individuals were indeed surrounded by others engaging in conversation. As the new member, I was introduced to them, but Carol would invariably interrupt. "This is Melissa, my son's wife. She might look presentable now, but usually, if you don't tell her, she's all about sweatpants and messy hair. She's all dressed up today because she's meeting all of you. Really, it's quite embarrassing." Despite the awkward smiles from others, Carol didn't hold back on the insults. While some tried to kindly change the subject, Brian either remained silent or just nodded as if agreeing with Carol's harsh words. Carol, trying to make a good impression, sweet-talked everyone and even handed out gifts. Upon entering the restaurant, it seemed there was an unwritten rule about seating arrangements. Following Brian to our seats, Carol quickly intervened as I attempted to sit. "How dare you, the son's wife, think you can sit? Stand up." To make matters worse, she kicked my recently healed left foot, causing me to lose balance and fall dramatically. I let out a pained cry. With no protection on my foot since I had just removed the cast, feeling the pain directly. Looking down at me, Carol then turned to the others, saying, "Sorry for the disturbance. My lack of training has shown, and I apologize for that. If you're going to make a scene, you should at least do it convincingly. Pretending to seek sympathy for an injury you caused yourself." Despite her quick talking, suggesting she might be panicking inside, Carol managed to stop several people from helping me. "It's fine. No need to be kind to a liar. I'll have a word with her. Please don't worry about it." As she said this, Carol grabbed my arm, trying to forcibly get me to stand. Seating herself promptly. Feeling more and more embarrassed and irritated by Carol treating me like a doll and the stares from those around, I was about to voice all the frustrations I had been holding back, when someone approached from behind and brushed past me to touch Carol's back. "Ah, Sharon." Carol's voice strained. Judging from her words, this must be my Raphael's mother. Her light-colored dress was beautiful, but her face, lips pressed tightly together, had a cold demeanor. "I heard you wouldn't be attending today. I did say I might not make it due to other plans, but I had made a reservation just in case I could. Is my presence unwanted, then?" "No. Not at all. It's far from being unwelcome. I'm delighted, actually." Carol suddenly shrank back, cowering. Sharon then spoke to Paul. "You can start without me," and led Carol to the corner of the room. As I tried to stand, Sharon stopped me.
Your foot hasn't healed yet, right? It's not good to strain yourself. Don't worry about anything and just sit next to Brian.
Her authoritative presence left no room for argument, and I complied. As Sharon was about to return to her seat, Carol, standing in the corner, spoke up.
Sharon.
What is it?
You stay standing. If you have something to say it from there.
Without even looking back, Sharon responded coldly.
Why should I stand? I came here wanting to dine with you too, Sharon.
Under the gaze of other relatives, Carol's face turned increasingly red.
How absurd. You think you have the right to sit as the son's wife? That's exactly what you told Melissa earlier. You should set an example.
Sharon's firm response left Carol blushing even more, amidst stifled laughter from somewhere in the room.
You used to be such a kind-hearted girl when we first met. When did you become so spiteful? If I had known, I would never have let my son marry into your family. Well, my son left home because he couldn't stand me, so there's that.
Paul twitched at her words. It seemed Paul married Carol as a petty escape from his strict mother. Sharon's remarks continued, everyone pausing their forks to listen.
I was surprised when you brought your wife and son back after running away. I thought you must have raised him well, but here you are, ignoring your son's wife being harassed right in front of you. For her, it must feel like she married into a terrible family, right? Show everyone here your foolish faces, both of you.
Sharon pointed at Paul and Brian, then had them stand next to Carol.
These people are a disgrace, behaving rudely towards guests. Remember this well.
Even I was nervous that it might have been too much, but seeing the three of them silently bowing their heads, I felt a sense of relief. Amid curious stares, Carol raised her voice again.
Sharon! I was just trying to educate this useless son's wife. She uses her injured foot as an excuse not to do her chores properly and even pretends to be in pain in front of others. I've had my hands full. Paul and Brian do as I say, but Melissa's resistance disrupts the order of our household.
I was speechless at Carol, who accused others of acting, wiping away non-existent tears with her sleeve. Sharon, silent for a moment, sighed deeply before speaking.
Even if Melissa were a useless wife, aren't you just as terrible for kicking her in front of not only relatives but also restaurant staff? Abusing your husband and son, and resorting to violence because your son's wife doesn't obey? You only know the world within these walls.
Sharon's voice, though not emotional, was deep and firm, silencing Carol. For about an hour, Carol and the two men stood in the corner. In the end,
it would be a waste of food otherwise.
Sharon allowed them to eat. After the dinner, I stopped Sharon to express my deepest gratitude. Sharon, still with a stern expression, advised,
cut off those who treat you poorly without mercy.
But her gaze seemed softer than before. Returning home, Paul, Carol, and Brian were waiting at the entrance.
Since you were out all day, you haven't cleaned the yard, right? Now, please take care of weeding, pruning the bushes, watering the flowers, and sweeping the entrance. After that, we'd like a massage, so hurry up and finish everything.
Carol, perhaps trying to vent her embarrassment from Sharon's rebuke, imposed even more tasks than usual. Paul and Brian remained silent, but their looks were unmistakably malicious. They blocked the entrance, making it clear they wouldn't let me in, so I sighed.
Ah, so this is the treatment you always receive.
Sharon appeared behind me, having asked to be brought here. The three of them tensed up again, as Sharon held up two large bags.
Mom, you came all this way even though you're busy?
Paul, who spoke up for the first time in a while, was met with a glare from Sharon.
Busy? The only reason you have extra work is because of you three. From what I've seen, you clearly haven't learned your lesson.
Sharon said this and handed each of them a bag. Indeed, Sharon, concerned about their behavior at the dinner, had decided to stay with them for a while to rectify their manners. She advised me to return to my parents' home and even said that if things didn't improve, I should consider divorce.
Now begins our delightful cohabitation. I'm so excited, I ended up bringing quite a lot of luggage. Brian, to get you to turn your attention back to Melissa, and for you two as a couple to rediscover your initial spark, I'll be putting my heart into guiding you.
Sharon's smile, which I saw for the first time, seemed to hold a curious kind of magic, both frightening and reassuring. The next day, I contacted my parents and decided to temporarily return home. Brian, trying to follow me, grabbed my mobile phone, saying he would come with me to my parents' house. Before I could stop him, my dad shouted over the phone,
"A man who just watches as Melissa is mistreated is better off not showing his face again."
Brian ended up feeling downcast once more. Disgusted by Brian's opportunism with my parents after neglecting me, any bit of affection I had for him vanished completely. Knowing Carol's volatile nature, Brian had agreed to live with her, fearing the consequences of refusal, and had put me in front to escape Carol's wrath. Paul likely shared this disposition. Silent even as Brian was repeatedly berated. I hoped that under Sharon's strict tutelage, all three would become somewhat decent human beings. However, I started receiving daily calls at my parents' house. Mostly from Carol, occasionally from Paul and Brian.
"Can't you talk Sharon into leaving?"
They pleaded repeatedly. With me gone, the three were being rigorously trained in household management by Sharon, suffering from physical aches and building frustration due to the inability to harass me. The atmosphere at home was constantly tense, worsened by Sharon's surprise inspections, inviting relatives over, and forcing them to entertain, keeping them on edge. As all three played the victim, saying, "Get Sharon to leave and come back yourself. Why should we suffer like this?" I declared my intention to divorce over the phone. Though such matters should ideally be discussed face to face, given their treatment of me, I figured this approach was justified. With Sharon mediating, the divorce proceedings went smoothly, and I decided to stay at my parents', looking for a new job and starting anew. 6 months later, an incident occurred at my new workplace. Brian, Paul, and Carol somehow found out where I worked and showed up. Wondering how they got the information.
"Melissa, the letter you sent me was tampered with." "That might have been how they found out."
Sharon called. I reassured Sharon, who apologized, that there was no harm done. From an upper floor, I watched as security restrained the three, who kept mentioning my name, likely unable to endure Sharon's discipline any longer. Considering Carol's daily verbal abuse and Paul and Brian's indifference, their current plight seemed just. I felt no sympathy seeing them detained, wishing to exclude them from my sight entirely. By then, I had found someone new, who respected my thoughts and shared his own, a dependable partner. Though I'm not yet ready to remarry, we're taking our time to nurture our love without rush.
A trip to Guam with your husband is amazing.
What would you like as a souvenir? The smug face of my sister, Amelia, who was on a cheating trip, seemed to flash before my eyes. Yet, without getting angry, I calmly said, "I'm currently busy with your daughter's funeral.
Also, my husband is right beside me."
"What?" Amelia, turning pale at my words and literally flying back home on a plane, was met with the sight of, "My name is Sophia. I'm a 29-year-old working mother. Though I've only recently started introducing myself as a housewife. In reality, I'm a newlywed, having just gotten married a few days ago. My husband, Eric, and I were colleagues at work, and our relationship blossomed from there, leading us to the altar. However, as workaholics, we deemed a wedding ceremony a waste of time and simply registered our marriage. We've talked about possibly having a photo shoot in wedding attire when we're less busy, but now, during the peak season, is not the time. The timing of our marriage registration, amidst our busy schedules, could only be described as such. It might seem like a busy season now, but we anticipated it getting even busier, making it inefficient not to marry now. A loveless, cool marriage? Not at all. We've decided never to mix work with personal life. At work, we're extremely dedicated professionals, but at home, we switch gears entirely and become a sweet, newlywed couple. Though we didn't have a ceremony, we did visit each other's parents to formally introduce ourselves. Both sets of parents accepted our decision not to have a ceremony with a modern "that's how it is these days." We simply sent greeting cards to our relatives. That's how smoothly and straightforwardly our marriage proceeded. With just one exception. The problem was my sister Amelia, 5 years my senior. Amelia is married and settled down now, but she was once known for being a big fan of men. Or should I say she was famous to me that way. What's even more troubling is that Amelia has a habit of stealing from people. Generally, the expectation between siblings is for the older to give way to the younger, but that kind of thinking is outdated, and our parents never pushed such notions on us. Not only did Amelia refuse sharing things with me, but she also came up with her own way of thinking. What's yours is also mine. In other words, she took my boyfriends. I got my first boyfriend in 8th grade. Given our young age, it was a sweet, innocent kind of romance.
Oh, what a cute kid.
Yet Amelia took him from me, saying, my boyfriend, just 14 and I had barely turned the same age, was taken by Amelia, who was 19. Unbelievable, but true in Amelia's case. And once my ex-boyfriend got into Amelia, she'd dump him. Basically, Amelia was just enjoying a game of stealing from me. Heartbroken, I didn't have a boyfriend for a while, but fatefully, I got a boyfriend again in my junior year of high school. It was a busy time with exams, so he was more like emotional support than anything else. However, Amelia, who had started working, came home while we were studying together.
Oh, what a cute kid.
Repeating that line, she took another boyfriend of mine. Why were they taken so easily? The two of us sisters didn't look alike. I resembled our ordinary-looking dad. Meanwhile, Amelia inherited not looks from our beautiful mom, but even more beautiful grandma's looks, through a striking case of skipping a generation. I hate to admit it, but Amelia is genuinely beautiful. And despite not exercising or dieting, she also has a great figure. For someone who struggled with dieting unsuccessfully, it's frustrating. And let's be honest, middle and high school students tend to choose based on looks. When faced with an older, beautiful sister, well, of course, they fell for her. After experiencing heartbreak because of Amelia twice, I chose a university far away. I lived on my own while working part-time and went straight into employment after graduation. I never returned to my hometown. Because, who knows what Amelia would do if I did. Now, Amelia is married and a mother of one. Even though I'd like to think she wouldn't make a move on my husband, now that I'm married, I still believe it's better to be cautious. People don't change that easily, I believe. When I went to my parents' house to say hello, Amelia wasn't there. I did send a marriage greeting card, but got no response to it. I have a bad feeling about this. As I muttered, Eric, who knew all the circumstances, said,
Well, it should be fine. We're apart and we hardly meet.
He laughed carelessly. He's laughing now, but I wonder if Eric can keep smiling when he meets Amelia. After all, even her past boyfriends who said, "It's okay," couldn't stand it when Amelia made a move on them. But Eric is a grown man of 30. I don't think he would be tempted just because a pretty woman makes a move on him. I want to believe that. It's not that I don't trust Eric, but it's Amelia we're talking about. A person who would steal her sister's boyfriend with a laugh and then easily throws them away. "I can't believe you dated such a loser." And she laughs again. I trust Eric more than Amelia, who I can't trust at all. Then, one day, I got a call from Amelia. Reluctantly, thinking it unpleasant, I answered the phone, not wanting to be immature. "Long time no see. I'm surprised you managed to get married." This was the first thing the sister said to her sister after a long time. I regretted answering. "But your marriage is pretty late, huh? I got married at 27, you know." She's taking a dig at me for being just 2 years older than she was when she got married. My daughter Emily, who is now 5, is rumored to be a prodigy at preschool. She's beautiful like me. Good thing she doesn't take after her aunt. And she puts me down. Emily's aunt, that's me, right? After talking about her own happy environment, Amelia finally broached the subject. "What's your husband like?" At this question, I thought, here we go. So, I say, "He's just a regular guy." I keep it vague and harmless. "What about his income?" "Maybe about half of what your husband, James, makes." "And his looks?" "That's what I'm saying, he's average. A plain guy who matches me." Sorry, Eric. In my eyes, you're the coolest husband in the world, but I can't let Amelia know that. I apologize to Eric in my heart. Average all around, huh? That's why I'm telling you he's average." "What does he do?" "He works at the same company as me." "What? An affair with a superior that led to a marriage of convenience?" "As if. We both were single and just dated normally before getting married." What kind of fantasy is that? I'm outraged, but Amelia, on the other end of the phone, laughs nastily and says, "Well, that's so you. Wish you all the happiness. Hope your marriage lasts long." And then she hangs up. I was annoyed all day by her irritating way of speaking until the end. A few days later, an unbelievable thing happened. "Hey Sophia, wanna have lunch outside today?" My colleague, Camila, asked. I agreed and went out to the company lobby to leave, and then... Sophia! There you are! I was just about to have them page you at the reception. Perfect timing! Hearing my name, I turned around, frowned, and made a strange sound. Because Amelia was rushing over to me. Why is Amelia, who's supposed to live 2 hours away by train, here? "What are you doing here, Amelia, in a place like this?" "What do you mean?" "I just happened to be traveling nearby." What, she's talking like she just stopped by while shopping. Is there even such a thing as just stopping by on a trip? And this place isn't even a tourist spot or anything. While making clearly suspicious excuses, Amelia looks around and says, "Ha, this is quite an impressive company." She's sizing it up. I have a bad feeling. Please, Eric, don't show up. Just as I was thinking that. "Sophia!" I hear his voice and my heart sinks. When I turn around, several of my coworkers are standing there. Including Eric, of course. "Heading out for lunch now?" Yeah, well. "Oh, who's this?" "Nice to meet you. I'm Sophia's sister." Sophia always talks about how much you help her out. Saying so, Amelia shakes hands without waiting for my stop. "Nice to meet you."
Oh my God, how handsome! Amelia exclaims while shaking hands. Sophia, how is this guy average at all? What? He's more handsome than James. Please take care of me in the future too. Amelia starts to ooze charm. This is what you call locking on. If you ever have trouble with Sophia, don't hesitate to contact me. Saying so, Amelia hands over a note with her contact information. Why does she even have that prepared? By now. Leaving us dumbfounded, Amelia left. Your sister is quite something, huh? Camila said that to me, and all I could do was give a wry smile in return. Then, all of a sudden, I got another call from Amelia. I decided not to answer, but after incessant calls, I reluctantly called back. I'm going to Guam soon, and I've decided to leave Emily at our parents' house during that time. If anything happens, please take care of her. What? But it's quite a distance from my house to our parents. You know our parents are getting old and don't have much energy. It'll be fine, since there's a weekend in between. Whether it's fine or not should be decided by the receiving side, not the one making the request. A trip to Guam? Just you and James? I guess I get the idea of taking a break, but... While I was talking, I heard something from behind Amelia. Who are you talking to? I heard a male voice say. Huh, James has the day off today? It was a weekday, and I was on my work break when I returned Amelia's call. Amelia is a housewife, but James works a regular job. Wasn't he supposed to be at work on a weekday? Hold on, I'm talking to Sophia. Ah, Sophia. Hearing that voice, I asked. Wait a minute. What? Amelia, who are you with right now? Don't tell me. Just bumped into your husband here by coincidence. We're technically siblings, so no big deal. Huh? What are you talking? Anyway, take care. Ignoring my response, Amelia hung up the phone. Unbelievable! My shout echoed through the break room. Sometime later, I heard that Emily had been delivered to our parents' house. It seems Amelia told our parents she was going on a trip to Guam with a friend. Apparently, it was a trip aligned with James' long-term business trip, and that's why Emily was left at our parents' house. An affair trip, really unbelievable. At my muttered complaint, "What?" Mom tilted her head, but I just shook mine, indicating it was nothing. Despite being furious at Amelia, Emily was innocent, and being her day off, I had come to our parents' house today to take care of lovely Emily. Sophia, look! Isn't it cute? It really is, you did a great job drawing. Emily innocently showed me a drawing of her favorite hamster. When I praised her, stroking her head, she smiled happily. Indeed, Emily was very cute and would surely grow up to be beautiful. I resolved to protect her pure heart so she wouldn't turn out like Amelia. But the situation took a sudden turn. After a while, "Ah!" I heard Emily scream, and the house turned into chaos. Being on my day off and staying at my parents' house, I was busily moving around. While I was busy, I got a call from Amelia. Wondering what it was about during such a busy time, I thought maybe Amelia was worried about Emily in her own way and answered, "Hey you. How are you?" Only to hear her carefree voice, making me want to hang up immediately. "I'm busy right now, what is it?" "Nah, just that Guam was so amazing." "Ah, is that so?" I'm going to hang up. Wait, hold on. Guess who's next to me right now? A friend, right? Yeah. So, what do you think your husband is doing right now? Eric? What happened to Eric? He's not there, right? You're home alone, right? Well, of course.
Amelia's insinuating way of speaking was infuriating, but I took a deep breath and patiently dealt with her. What do you want?
Hey, you're on the phone with someone again?
Suddenly, another man's voice was heard over the phone. Amelia laughed and responded to him. Wait a sec, Eric. Oh, did you hear that voice just now? I thought to myself that it must be intentional, I replied.
I didn't hear anything.
It's just too bothersome to engage.
Oh, really?
That's too bad. Just kidding. I guess you probably did hear but pretended not to, right? Sorry, I'm the only one happy here.
Look, I'm really busy right now. Can we talk later?
Don't be like that, it'll be quick. So, about the trip to Guam with your husband, it's been fantastic. She dared to say it outright. But my heart did not rage. I was quite calm about that matter. Thinking I was silent and unsettled because she couldn't see my face, Amelia didn't wait for my reply and continued. So, I'm going to bring back a souvenir for you. Someone who came with us will bring it back, so let's eat it together. I was astounded by her brazenness, no longer trying to hide anything. Oh, by the way, what kind of souvenir would you like? Something sweet? Listen. Unable to bear it any longer, I said. Right now, we're in the middle of Emily's funeral.
What?
There was a delayed response to my words. Didn't you hear me? Emily's, your daughter Emily, we're in the middle of her funeral.
What? Wait. What are you? Stop joking.
I wouldn't joke about life or death matters. Besides, I took a breath and, looking up at the person standing beside me, said, My husband is right here beside me.
What?
Over the phone.
Wait, what does that mean?
Her voice sounded panicked, but ignoring it, I hung up the phone. Seeing me snort in disdain, the person who chuckled wryly was indeed my husband, Eric. Several hours later,
Emily!
A person burst into the house, shouting loudly. Undoubtedly, it was Amelia. Apparently, Amelia was, after all, a mother. She must have caught the first flight back. Amelia, with a changed complexion, barged into the living room where we were relaxing.
What do you mean, Emily's funeral?
Right after she entered, shouting.
What?
Amelia was surprised. Mommy? A young voice called out.
Emily! Wait, I don't understand. What about the funeral?
At Amelia's words, Emily teared up. She had just stopped crying. Remembering it probably made her sad again. Mommy, Hammy. Saying so, Emily pointed at the empty hamster cage and then handed Amelia a small box. It was an urn containing Hammy's ashes.
What? Wait, huh? What's going on?
Looking for an explanation, Amelia turned to me, so I explained. Emily's pet hamster, Hammy, died suddenly yesterday. It seems he was quite old, so it couldn't be helped.
You said something about Emily's funeral earlier. Ah, that. I meant to say the funeral for Emily's pet hamster. Didn't that come across? How could that have possibly come across?
Amelia's scream echoed throughout the house. Ignoring that, I turned my attention to the man who had come with Amelia.
And who might this be?
To that, Amelia, who had collapsed to the floor as if her legs had given out, yelled.
What are you talking about? Your husband, right?
Why am I the one getting yelled at?
Like I said earlier, my husband is right here beside me. Stop joking around already.
Angry, Amelia finally looked at the man sitting next to me.
Who's that? The man with the utterly average face?
Rude.
This is my husband, Eric. Huh?
Amelia was surprised, and Eric smiled bitterly. "Hello, Sophia's husband here." He bowed his head. "Then, who's this Eric here?" "That's another person with the same pronunciation but different spelling of the name Eric, Eric." "What?" "Yes, the person standing next to Amelia. It just so happens that his name is Eric. And both I and my Eric know this person well." "But you said at the company this person was Eric." "I never said that. This Eric is a friend from high school who coincidentally ended up at the same company. We became friends because my husband Eric and him have the same sounding name. My friend Eric introduced me to my now husband Eric, and that's how we started dating and eventually got married." "I don't get it. What the hell?" "What's confusing is on your end. First, you show up at the company out of nowhere, then you ignore my husband Eric and give your phone number to my friend Eric. And Eric, being Eric, goes and says nice to meet you. Honestly, he's always been a ladies' man. Everyone was just astounded, you know." Amelia was speechless at my words. Yes, on that day when Amelia stormed into the office. The man Camila and I ran into as we were about to go out for lunch was none other than my friend Eric, along with my husband Eric and a few other male colleagues. It seems Amelia only had eyes for handsome men, getting fixated on my friend Eric, while my husband Eric, who blends into the crowd with his average looks, didn't catch her eye. "But he was calling you by your name without any honorifics." "Well, yeah, we've been friends since high school. I call him Rick as a nickname." "Rick?" "To avoid confusion with my husband Eric. I prefer to call my husband by his real name." Smiling sweetly, Amelia then glared at my friend Eric. "Why didn't you correct me? I asked you why you married someone as plain as Sophia." "Well, I didn't deny it, but I didn't affirm it either. I just said that you were more attractive than Sophia." Maybe it was time to stop being friends over this. Amelia's face was a mix of red and blue, visibly upset. "Rick, you're also to blame. Why go after a married woman?" Eric spoke with a hint of anger. However, Eric just shrugged, looking troubled. "Well, she said she was divorced, asked me to officially date her. Though, I thought of it as just a fling." "What did you say?" Amelia's face turned red again at Eric's words. "What do you mean? Our relationship was just for fun." A male voice then chimed in. "So, you were serious?" "Of course, I was. I even went as far as getting a divorce." "Wait, what?" Realizing the voice didn't come from my husband or friend, Amelia slowly turned her gaze towards the door leading into the living room, her eyes widening. "Ah, James! Why are you here? Weren't you on a business trip?" "The other party had to cancel, so it ended early. Got home to find no one there, was quite the shock. I was about to call you when Sophia called me, said she was here." "So what's this?" "Amelia, when did we get divorced?" The divorce was just a joke. Amelia stood there, dumbfounded. Meanwhile, still slumped on the floor, Amelia looked up as the voice of my friend Eric echoed above her. "Hey, what's this about not being divorced? So, everything with me was just a game to you? And you have the nerve to blame me? Don't mess with me." "What did you say?" "I have no use for a woman who lies about something as serious as a divorce." Eric said that, then deeply bowed to James. "I'm truly sorry for what happened, even though I didn't know. I understand money can't fix this, but as compensation, I will pay." Saying this, Eric handed over his business card as his contact information and left. "Wait, Eric! I was serious about you.
Yeah, right. As Amelia tried to follow, James's cold voice stopped her. Turning around, she faced James, who looked at her with cold eyes. James, wait, that was just a little joke. I'm tired of your lies. What? All those lies about taking care of our child while I was on business trips, going out with friends, and even being divorced from me. That's, well, it's sad to see you become a liar. What? As Amelia looked at James, bewildered, he nodded as if agreeing with himself. So, let's get a divorce. That way, what you said won't be a lie anymore. What? Well, it's not we got divorced, but we will get divorced, so it's a bit different, but that's within an acceptable range. Wait, just a minute. I won't wait. I'll also claim compensation during the divorce proceedings, and I'll take custody of Emily and raise her. You'll be paying child support. Wait. No waiting. From now on, we communicate through lawyers. Emily, let's go home. Saying this, James reached out his hand to Emily. Emily looked confused. Are we going home? Yes. James nodded. Wait a minute. You're going to take her mother away from Emily. Amelia screamed, thinking she could somehow turn the situation around by using her child as leverage. James paused for a moment, considering. Then looked at Emily after a brief silence. Emily, would you be lonely without Mom? No, I wouldn't be lonely. Immediately responded. What? Emily, you're okay without Mom. Emily looked at the flustered Amelia. Mommy is always gone on the days Daddy isn't home. She always says she's going out to play and tells me to watch TV, and she comes back late at night. Dinner is always just a cold bento. And I have to take a shower by myself even though it's scary. Amelia, you. I guess this was all new to him. James glares at Amelia with an angry expression on his face. What? It's your fault for dumping childcare on me. Amelia, you said you'd quit your job to focus on childcare and show me you could raise our child well. Besides, I took care of Emily on weekends, thinking you needed rest. Have you been deceiving me all this time? That's enough. I'll have a thorough discussion with your affair partner later. We'll discuss the next steps with a lawyer. Wait, James. No. Emily, let's go. Okay. Bye-bye, Mommy. As Amelia reached out her hand trying to cling on, Emily easily said goodbye, and Amelia's hand fell. The door closed firmly behind them, leaving Amelia slumped in despair. After negotiations, Amelia and her husband got divorced. It turned out Amelia had affairs with others besides Eric, leading to a divorce entirely at Amelia's fault. Her trip to my company, claimed to be a vacation, was actually an affair trip. Eric paid James compensation as agreed in the divorce court and left the company, stating it was his way of taking responsibility. Though I thought it was unnecessary, he insisted on setting things right. I hoped this incident would lead Eric, who had always been handsome and popular, to seek a more sincere approach to love. As for Amelia, don't come back until you can pay off your debts, Dad said, effectively banishing her from the family home. As a housewife, Amelia couldn't possibly afford the compensation and child support ordered in the divorce settlement, so her parents had to cover it. They probably don't expect to get their money back, but made the sacrifice to ensure they could still see their granddaughter, Emily. Divorced and with nowhere to live or return to, Amelia reached out to me. I knew something was off. You marrying such a handsome guy. All right, I've had enough. Don't ever contact me again.
With that, I hung up the phone. In a panic and nearly hysterical.
I'm sorry. It was my fault.
I won't go after your men anymore. She called several times, but I cut the calls off without saying a word and blocked her number. What happened to Amelia after being abandoned by both her parents and me is unknown. A neighbor who knows Amelia informed me saying, I thought I saw someone like Amelia, but she was so gaunt it hardly looked like her. Not a trace of her beauty left. Whether that was truly Amelia or not, I can't be sure, but I doubt I'll ever see her again. I'm exhausted. You've had a tough time. Eric handed me a warm glass of milk with a wry smile as I slumped down.
Thank you.
Saying that, I looked intently at Eric. What's up? You're making me blush.
No, just thinking, what a great guy you are.
What? Only you would say something like that.
Well, I think it's best that way. The only one who needs to understand your charm is me.
We both laughed, and Eric wrapped me in a warm embrace.